The 2020 election may go down as the election with the most amount of deaths, with at least 7 deaths resulting in the riot. But those deaths were from a very preventable event from the aftermath of the election. But in 1828, one of the candidates' wives died as a direct result of the election. To get a better idea, in 1824, the son of founding father and second president John Adams, John Quincy Adams, had in all respects lost the presidential election, losing both the popular vote and the electoral vote to War of 1812 hero Andrew Jackson. However, since Jackson hadn't won a majority of the electoral votes, Congress had to step in to decide the winner, in which they chose Adams. Click up on the right for that one. Understandably, Jackson was butthurt by that, so he decided to run in the 1828 election against John Quincy Adams, who was, of course, running for re election. Since 1824, the things that happened under John Quincy Adams' presidency includes John Quincy Adams deciding to be sworn in on a constitutional law book rather than the customary Bible. Adams had promised for better internal infrastructure. However, most notably, he signed the Tariff of 1828, which was aimed at helping the western states, which it did not. Not only that, it hurt the economy of the South, and it got a little to no thanks from the North, so it just offended everybody. Oh, and another thing that made Adams seem like an unappealing candidate was, well, when presidents run for re-election, they typically nominate their VP for re-election as well. Well, some of them don't, and Adams was one. Okay, so, well, he did not nominate his vice president, John Calhoun. Not because he was a bad vice president or because he died or whatnot, but because John Calhoun joined Jackson's ticket. Yes, the vice president joined the opposition. That marks only the second time in American history where the president was up for re election against the incumbent vice president. Second to when Adams was running against his vice president in 1800. All of this, coupled with the fact that Adams was seen as an insider elite richman, the son of a president nonetheless, while Jackson was the quote champion of the common man, who was now the largest voting bloc in America, led to a bleak outcome for the Adams campaign. This, of course, led to the Adams campaign having to do something big if they wanted to win this election. Of course, back then, the candidates didn't campaign. Nah, they just sat back while their supporters did all the campaigning. Adams' supporters hurled vile remarks, not at Jackson, not at the fact that he owned slaves, not at the Democratic Party, but at his wife, Rachel Jackson. Rachel Jackson did, after all, marry Jackson while married already.
Oh,
However, both Rachel and Andrew thought Rachel's previous relationship had been finalized. However, it hadn't. This little hiccup led to the Adams campaign pounding her for it. Charles Hammond, a senator from Ohio, wrote, "Ought a convicted altruist and her paramour husband be placed in the highest office of this free Christian land?" Jackson's campaign was not about to let that slide. His supporters clapped back by saying Adams had sold a prostitute, a billiards table, and other government expenses to the Russian Tsar. In fact, Adams had employed a little girl to Russia as a minister, but the billiards table was personal property of Adams. Also, the quote unquote other governmental expenses turned out just to be a chess set. As for the election, Jackson won it comfortably, winning 178 electoral votes out of 131 needed to win, carrying 15 states mostly in the west and south of the country. Jackson won an outstanding 55% of the vote. No one would receive such a margin until the 1904 re election win of Theodore Roosevelt. Wait a minute. You clicked on for the person who died after this election? I swear this isn't clickbait. But remember Jackson's wife, Rachel? Well, she was resilient to go to DC in the first place. She stated, "I would rather be a doorkeeper in the kingdom of God than live in that palace in Washington." That, the heavy chest pain she suffered during the campaign, and the loss of her adopted son Lincoln Jackson in 1828, she was suffering. And she died on the 26th of December, 1828. Jackson, horrified and angered by this event, stated, "I can and do forgive all my enemies, but those vile wretches who have slandered her must look to God for mercy." And famously, "God, I hope you can forgive her killers, for I cannot." But what about Adams? What was he doing? Well, of course, he wasn't campaigning, but he never made any public statements about what his supporters were saying about Jackson's wife. An undeniably sad ending to this video, but what did you expect clicking on a video with that title?